Hi, this is Dennis with Second Chance Tackle. Today I have the opportunity of working on a Lew's Speed Spool low profile baitcaster. This is the Carbon Blue GT. It's a max magnetic compost that was brought in by Tommy. Tommy is a local fisherman here who fishes his equipment very hard, and it's end of season. He brought me about 5 or 6 reels, and we're going to take this apart. We'll show you how it's made, how to service it, and how to keep it running for a long time to come. Well, if you like these kinds of videos, I would encourage you to subscribe to my channel, and if you do subscribe to my channel, hit that notification button, because that notification button will tell you when I'm posting the videos, and it'll give you an opportunity to make a decision as to whether you want to watch that particular video. I cover all kinds of fishing reels and tackle on this channel, and today we're going to work on a low profile baitcaster. Tomorrow we may work on a very large saltwater trolling reel, and then maybe we'll work on a spin fishing reel for lakes and streams. So I cover whatever comes into my shop. That's kind of what you're watching here, is everything that comes into my shop is kind of getting a video to show you how to do it yourself. So if you like that kind of thing, please subscribe. Well, we started by taking off the exterior parts. That involved removing the set screw for the nut cap, and then taking the nut cap off. You can remove the handle, and underneath the handle there is a tension washer between the handle and the star adjuster. We're going to remove the star adjuster by backing it off. That means turning it into a counterclockwise or turning it towards you position. And underneath that you're going to find a thin washer or spacer. And underneath the spacer there's going to be 2 tension washers there. They are not intended to be flat. They are a bowed washer, and those washers will provide a little variability in the tension on that adjuster. Well, I take all my pieces after I remove them and I put them into a parts tray. This edition happens to feature a fast food container. That's my method of organizing, but of course if you have a different method, that's completely up to you in terms of what you want to use for your organization, so that you know where your pieces and parts are when it's time to reassemble. Well, Lew's is a product of Rather Products, and Rather Products just acquired Zebco and Quantum reels as well, so now you have the 3 of them all together as one. To remove the side plate case here, you're going to have 1 screw in the back. You're going to have 3 face screws, and you may have a screw under the spool. So the best thing I find is to take the side plate and remove the spool before you continue doing anything. To remove the side plate, you're going to pull out on this pin in the front here, hold it out, and then turn the side plate just a little bit, and it's going to dislodge, and it'll be able to remove it that way. This one's probably going to be a mess. It is. He's got a little bit of a tangle in this. And when I service fishing reels, I do not change the line, but I recommend to the folks whose fishing reels it is that when it's time for service, go ahead and make sure that you change the line out as well, because that line is going to stretch, it's going to get old, it's going to have issues, and there's no sense servicing the reel using the old line, leaving it on your reel for too long, and then finding out that when you go to fish, well, you're breaking it off. All right, I'm going to just wrap this as tight as I can. The other thing with taking the line off when you're servicing it certainly makes it easier. I'm going to put a drop of oil onto the bearing, spin the bearing as well. If you needed to remove this bearing, there's a pin here. It's right on the side. You can see it's a cross pin. You would push that pin out with a tool, or if you need to in an emergency, use a pliers. Just anchor the pliers to one side so that you have enough pressure to push the pin down and through. That will remove the bearing. All right, that goes off to the side. I just wanted to check the back of the case here because I want to make sure that there were no screws back here that were holding the case on in addition to the other one. The service can continue now. We're going to take that side plate. There's a bearing in there. I'm going to oil that bearing. And I'm just going to let it sit this way. It's a shielded bearing, so I'm going to let it sit this way so that the oil soaks in. This is your magnetic adjuster. complex. You don't need to do anything with that. And actually, don't put grease or anything on there. It's going to ruin the magnetics. All right, let's take the 4 side plate screws out then. We'll start here. And as I'm staring at this, you can see that there's an A7 China. This reel was a Chinese-made loose speed spool reel. And I imagine that all of the Quantums, all of the Lus, and all of the Zebcos are all probably made in the same plant. All right, well, this is what I like to do. I like to take the screws out, lay them on my desk, and find out if there's any oddball screws in there. And right away, you'll notice that the one that's in the back of the case, this one here, is longer than the one that was in the front side of the case. I'm going to grab the one in the back here. We'll see where that lines up. Well, that's the same as the one in the back of the case. And we should have one more here. And then we should be able to remove the workings of this. Okay, so it looks like 3 of them are the same, and the short one is the one that's going to go up by the line guide piece. So once I've identified the locations for that, I'm going to put them into a separate corner of my parts tray, and we should be able to remove the face now. Now that bar that's the release lever for the side plate is going to stay in this case. Well, here's your 3rd ball bearing. It's right there, and we want to make sure that we get oil on that as well. I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to lay the case down, and we'll be able to get that out of the way and let that oil seep into the bearing. I oil bearings. I do not grease the bearings. All right, inside here you're going to notice we have the anti-reverse clutch and shield. We also have a bearing washer that sits there. So we'll just lay that off to the side. This one's starting to become undressed right away. One of the things that I like to do personally is get these springs off the yoke and into my parts tray just as quick as I can. I've just had a lot of experiences where if you're not paying attention, those springs on those posts tend to take a walk, and well, it's a tough time ahead. Well, here's some of the things you like and don't like about the reel. The reel is very clean, so we're going to just remove the main gear. You can see underneath we have plastic gears. We have plastic anti-reverse trip. We have a plastic yoke, and we have a plastic drive for the level wind gear. I'm not a fan of plastics. And we have a plastic lever in the back here. I've just seen too many of these become brittle and snap. So if you're curious about how a reel is made, and you see a lot of plastic parts, that may be something that, well, maybe you don't like them like I don't like them, and if that's the case, you probably want to search something else out that has the metal pieces or what have you. All right, I've just cleaned off the old grease on this one. That's your yoke, because it looks like the yoke used to tie animals. Here's your pinion gear. Notice there's 2 sides of it. There's one that has some groove that slots in the top, and then there's another one that's the drive gear intersection. You want to find the yoke side that has the angles on it. That's the side facing inward, and the gear is going to face that way when you go to reinstall. I'm going to just put a little bit of new grease on there. Put that back in the collar so that we don't lose much of it. Grease the front end of it. You want to check the teeth. You want to make sure that they're uniform, clean, and not in any jeopardy of having any issues. Okay, here's the next step on that. You know what, before we go there, let's go over to this so we can get this out of the way. There's a line guide assembly that you want to service. You need to make sure that it stays clean. And to do that, there's a shield on this side. It's held in by a screw. You're going to use a micro screwdriver to get that one out. Watch it, it's a very small screw. Some people like to put a towel onto the workbench. That way the screw doesn't bounce as much. There's a whole host of ways to do this. I would just encourage you to do it the way you like to do it, because at the end of the day, you're the one that has to account for the pieces and parts, and you're the one that, well, if something goes missing, it's on you to go find it. All right, those are the two screws. We're going to lay them right there. Then the shield will come off. Once the shield is off, we have access to the cap that is holding the level line guide. And we just want to put a drop of oil in here. And we also want to oil the worm gear. I'm going to go ahead and put that back on. I imagine that there's a little bit of a workaround somewhere where maybe, just maybe, you can get this off without taking that shield off, but you know what? It's so much easier to do it this way. You have full access to it and you're not worried about reinstalling or having any issues with that. I'm going to just run this, make sure that it runs nicely. It does. Notice that the bar came out. Don't panic. Your bar is out here. All you need to do is push the bar back in and make sure that it seats in the case before you go to reinstall. That bar is held in by the pressure of the side plate here. Alright, once you've done that, then go ahead and grab the shield again. I'm guessing I have that upside down. That's okay. And just reset that. There we go. Don't force anything. Again, these are plastics. The little rod just came out again. So just be patient. Work it in. You'll get it right. Well, if you have any questions while I'm doing this, please leave them in the comments section. I do try to respond to all of the questions. And maybe it's on this reel. Maybe you want to know a little bit more about the companies. Maybe you just have a question that you're working on and are trying to get the answer to it. Maybe you're stuck on something. Whatever it is, leave them in the comments section. I will be happy to try and answer those questions for you. All right, those two little screws go back in now to hold that case, and you can see how the plastic tag on this one is holding that little metal rod in place there. So the best way to service a reel is to service all pieces and parts. Don't just do a quick once and over. Why bother? It's just not going to take you that much longer to do the whole reel. Let's turn that, make sure that the line guide is working nicely, which it is. Next up then, this is the trip ratchet that's going to flip when you set your free spool release. And we have a hard washer that holds that in place. That trip ratchet is rectangular. So on that trip ratchet, what you want to do is make sure that it is seated properly at the base. This is just a single drag washer system. Up here. Now, as I mentioned, Tommy fishes these hard. This one's kind of stuck to the bottom, so I'm being very careful here. I'm using a utility knife to try to pry it free. So that washer by itself is ineffective because it was stuck to the base of this main gear. So you want to clean all of that out of there. I'm going to use 4-0 steel wool to do that. I'll clean up most of it. You actually may need to use a screwdriver to get some of those pieces off of there. So this is what happens when you don't back off your drag washers when you're done fishing. So if you have a star adjuster reel, take the time to reset this back to a loose drag when you're not fishing it. What that's going to do is it's going to stop it from clamping down, have the grease dry on it, and then, well, act like cement and adhere the two. Alright, we're going to use a dry grease here. I'm going to put a liberal coating on there, but then I'm going to wipe the excess off of it. I'm also going to flip the dry washer. So we had this side was the one that was adhering, so let's go with a fresh side there before we put that back in. Check the teeth on the main gear. They're all good. They're properly aligned. There's no chips, cracks, or otherwise. So we're going to go ahead and just put some new grease on this. This reel was very dry, and there seems to be a theme with the reels that Tommy has brought in, that they are dry reels. There, find the right side again. Let's go ahead and put this back on the top. And I think probably what we want to do now is go back to that yoke assembly and just make sure we've seated that properly before we go any further. So I'm going to take that yoke assembly and the pinion gear. And if my hands are in the way, I apologize. It's still a little bit moving at the time, but set it in that way. Now you can take your main gear in, put that on. Checking the belt washer. And we're in good condition there. We're about ready to close this up then. So before we do, you can put a drop of oil onto these moving parts areas where the slides are going to work. We got to go find those two screws that or springs rather, that we had that always like to escape on me. And then we can go ahead and reinstall the side plate now. Remember, we've oiled the one piece of it already. There's this small washer which goes on before the collar, so let's make sure that gets back on here. Then take your assembly, find the hole where that release goes, start that through. You're probably not going to get your anti-reverse clutch lined up properly. That's what just happened here. And while we have that popped out there, just wipe off any excess greases or the like that may be on there. And just go ahead and push that down and through. Alright, this is what you needed on that side. Now remember, we have one short screw. You remember where it goes? I do. It goes right here. So I'm going to put that one in first because I don't risk putting another one in there somewhere. And then what we'll take is the other three, and we said those are all the same. So it really doesn't matter which screw slot it goes in. Unless there's something on me that just wants to stick. There we go. So not a terribly difficult reel to maintain, and that tells you that you can do this yourself, and quite honestly you should do it yourself on a regular basis. And what's regular? Well, I think at a minimum once a year. Most of the time these reels are used in fresh water, so you're not going to experience the same types of issues that you would if this was a saltwater reel. However, you will pick up the dirt and the grease and the grime. Your oils and greases and lubricants will evaporate, and they do need to be restored and replaced on a regular basis. So I would say a year would be a good amount of time between service intervals. Let's grab that spool now. I'll put a little bit of grease onto the spool shaft. This is what always gets me here with the reinstall of this spool, is that line tends to run wild. Trap, you can see it got trapped here. Always does. Another reason to remove your line. However, it's not my line to remove, so I will remove it with a pick. Now I can go ahead and reset the side case. That starts up top here. Make sure you get it seated. And then just pull the pin out, swap it back down, make sure that the pin is set on the right side in. Now we're looking for the washers to go into the star adjuster. Remember, you have the two tension washers. I like to sit them belly to belly. I like to put the one side that curls up, facing up, and then reverse that for the second part of it so that the curling side is down. And we have the one spacer. Then we have the star adjuster. So that's basically the inside of the reel now. When you're doing this, make sure that you're threading it properly and easily. Once you got that, you can either put the handle on there, or you can just hold the stem to complete the tightening there. All right. You will recall next we had a tension washer. And we have that nice handle. The handle cap. That's a 10mm handle cap. Again, same thing here. Make sure that that handle nut is going on evenly and easily. Do not attempt to over tighten something that's not going on right. It will only wind up tearing the threads on your main post, and then you've got an issue. Alright, I have the point of this nut cap facing that screw hole. That's usually a good indication that this will align, and it does. Let's go ahead and take the tie down screw. That's the last piece of my parts tray, so that should be the last part of this installation. Okay, nothing left to do but give it a test then. So let's go over what we've done. So we started by taking off the non-gear side plate. We removed the spool to make sure there wasn't a screw under there. You remove the side plate by pulling this pin out and turning the side plate upwards. Then we removed the gear side plate. You started by taking out the exterior pieces, the handle and the nut and the screw, removing the star adjuster and the adjusting washers underneath that. Then we were able to remove the 4 side plate screws to pull off the case. We inspected all the pieces and parts to make sure they were nice and clean and operable. We found out that there was a sticking drag washer in there that had to be cleaned up. And then we took off the little caging here to make sure that we oiled the worm gear and the line guide pawl, and we reassembled it. It's time for a final test. Alright, well, turns nice and smooth and easily. The spool turns nice and freely. You can adjust the spool tension with the blue nut here. Does the return flip back? It does. Drag holding, well, need a little bit more tension on that drag washer there. Alright, drag holds nicely. So there you go. That's the Lose Speed Spool Carbon Blue GT 15. It's a nice bassing reel. Don't know the pricing on it, but overall it's a nice reel. It turns free and easy, and it's ready to go fishing again. So I hope you've enjoyed that. Again, if you did, please subscribe. If you have any questions, please leave them in the comment section. And to everybody who's a first responder and essential personnel, thank you for everything it is that you do to keep us safe. To everyone, please stay safe, stay well, and stay watching. This is Dennis with Second Chance Tackle. Have a great day.